Alice, dry months, we should really have a checklist as far as what we do with stock.
Yeah, so this can be a bit of a quieter time of the year for people, so you should always be thinking about how you're going to make things easier for you later on in the season by looking at some considerations in the dry months, such as body condition scoring your animals.
So that's basically looking at how fat they are or how much bulk they've got.
Yeah, it's a little bit more than that. You're looking at whether they're in optimum condition to go on and do whatever you need them to do. So with your sheep, there's a condition score sort of ideal of being around 3 to 4. The scale is 1 to 5, where 1 is emaciated. You should not have sheep like that. You can't transport them to slaughter. They really need to gain weight. And 5 is they're a bit fat. You're feeding them too much. You're not going to get a lot of meat. It's mostly just fat under the wool. And cattle, there are 2 different scoring systems. The one I think is most commonly used is 1 to 10, where 5 is kind of the mid-range, but say in a dairy cow, sort of 3 to 4 might be more normal. In a beef cow, you might be sitting a little larger than that. The most important thing with body condition scoring is that you really want it to be hands-on. If you're just looking at your animals in the paddock, you might be able to get some idea, but with sheep, especially with fleece, it's much better to run a few through the race and get an idea of what they are by feeling.
Hand on the backbone, if you can feel the backbone and ribs, it's too light.
Pretty much, yeah. There are some really great aids to help with body condition scoring online, especially on the Dairy NZ and the Beef and Lamb NZ websites. They have a good score on there. You can read through what it should feel like and what to feel for, especially over the ribs and the pin bones on a cow, so the long and the short ribs and the pin bones in the thigh. On a sheep, it's mostly just in the backbone.
Because I look at dairy cattle and those pin bones make them look skinny to me because they're huge.
Yeah, they do.
Compared to a beef animal, they're a totally different shape, aren't they?
Yeah, there's a massive difference, and that's all in the breeding, so it's good to have a look at those scores before you go out and condition score your animals, so you know kind of what they should be.
Exactly. People can very easily overlook the need for water.
Yes, especially in the dry months. You need to be checking every day that all of your animals have access to water and that it's not contaminated with anything. Algal blooms are a definite possibility, although they are not common. So you should be checking that your animal's water is not becoming stagnant, that it's fresh, and that the trough is nice and full so everyone can get there.
People are also pretty good at overlooking the need for shade. They themselves wear hats, but they let the animals bake it out.
Yeah, so these are real basic things, obviously, but it is important that you have some shelter available for your animals, not just for cold weather, but also for this horrible hot weather as well. So you always see sheep kind of clustered together under their single tree. At least they have that tree. You need to make sure they've got something.
You see them actually starting to get some shade off another one, don't you?
Yeah, they do, yeah.
Yeah, they do. Fly strike?
So with fly strike in sheep, prevention is obviously much, much better, but if you notice anything, you need to act really quickly to treat it, because if you let those horrible little maggots get ahead of you, then it's really hard to get on top of it. So in terms of prevention, you need to look at dagging your sheep if they're looking a bit dirty in the back end.
Yep, yeah, you can. It's a farming program, you're fine.
You also need to treat wounds if they happen really, really quickly. You can do some strategic shearing to try and cut down the amount of wool you've got. If it's wet, you need to be thinking about whether there could be some issues there. Dipping is a possibility, however you obviously need to think about your sheep's health, your own health, and any environmental contaminants there.
Pour-ons have revolutionised that sort of thing, haven't they?
Yeah, they absolutely have.
Yeah. That horrible little green-coloured fly from Australia will actually do sweat glands and things, won't they?
Yeah.
So that comes back to your shearing?
Yeah, making sure that you're shearing appropriately.
Now, foot issues during a hot, dry period.
Yeah, because it's so dry, your feet are likely to dry out as well. You can end up with cracks, especially in bulls, which is obviously you need to be really careful with a bull, because if it goes lame, they're going to have a lot of trouble with mating. So you need to keep a close eye on any lameness in any animals and treat early, and try and avoid them getting things like seedy toe.
And nutrition, of course, is once again vital.
Nutrition is definitely vital. If you let your animals get light in their body condition score, going back to the start, then it's going to be much harder for them to combat things that come at them in the winter, like higher parasite burdens, any trace element deficiencies due to not eating enough through the summer. If they've been nutritionally stressed, then they're more likely to be vulnerable to things like, in cows, Campylobacter and Yersinia. That's in young cattle. They can be really prone to that if they've been nutritionally deprived throughout the summer.
So really looking at the overall thing, there's a handful of things that I'm thinking probably more about the lifestylers,
Yeah.
because they're the general farmers, but it's really making sure the animal's the right weight,
Yes.
that you've got lots of water, you've got shade, and monitoring.
Yeah, keeping an eye on things. You need to check your animals frequently so that you know if any of them are starting to look a little light, maybe you can preferentially feed them. If any of them are lame, you can either call your vet to get them to have a look at it, or you can look at their feet yourself and see what you can find. If they have any wounds or any dags, you treat that early to prevent fly strike. And if they are looking light and you don't know why, you've got plenty of feed, then you need to call the vet because there might be a medical reason for it.
Can you just run through, for the lifestylers, the symptoms of a sheep that's been fly struck, because they have a very peculiar behaviour?
Yeah, so I guess some of the early signs are,
Twitching.
yeah, they start to twitch and they look irritable.
They'll fall away from the rest of the flock.
Yeah, they kind of go and hide, or not hide, but they stay away from the others, and then eventually you might see that they're starting to lose wool, particularly in the hind end, I find, but it can happen anywhere if they have a wound.